You know, I wake up my son every morning around 3:30 before I leave for campus, and I force him to play piano. And it's mainly because I played music for many number of years. I sang, I played the santoor, the tumbak, sitar. And I've come to experience that there are moments in life where you are so broken, maybe you're just sad and depressed, or maybe you see an event that you can't express through language, and you sit and you sing it, or you play the piano or something. Every time I wake him up, and I force him to play the piano because I don't think he's exempt from the slings and arrows of life. I think at a certain point in his life he's going to be crushed. And I may be around, I may not be around, but the truth is, you can't reach anyone when they're in pain. You can give them some comfort, maybe give them a bowl of cereal, sit next to them, maybe even hug them, hold them, embrace them. But the truth is, they have to kind of wrestle with the event that lives outside as well as inside of them. So every morning when I wake him up, he says all these nasty things to me about me, that I am evil, I'm a horrible father, that he should have never been born. And so he categorizes me as someone who just is uncaring and not so kind. I wonder if he'll change his mind 20 years from now, when maybe he has a girlfriend that will leave him, or maybe when he mourns the loss of the passing of his mother, or his father, or his sister. Or maybe he'll be diagnosed with cancer. Who the hell knows what happens to people? And so he may come at a crossroad where he comes to realize that no books can help him, no language can reach him. And so he'll just sit behind the piano. And while playing, maybe he'll think back some 20 years that yes, I had this guy for a father. He robbed me from rest and comfort, and he forced me to play the piano. I am so glad that he did. And all of a sudden, I am no longer in the category of someone being evil, but maybe someone who is saintly, who actually cared for him, liked him, you know. So our definition of evil changes. If you, for example, were to look at the canonical Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, something really interesting happens to the character of Judas. You don't see Judas as purely evil in the Gospel of Mark. He's just a guy who is just lost, confused. He's just not a very nice man. You know, by the time you get to the Gospel of John, he is just pure evil. And that's because whoever wrote these books, they began to add certain qualities to people that they didn't initially have. If you read, for example, one book, it says that Judas walked, his belly opened, and he just died, which is called the field of blood. In another book, same, the canonical Gospels, he hangs himself, you know. So this idea of evil is somewhat questionable. There is this other aspect, which is there is something about us that enjoys aggression. I mean, I hate seeing blood. I hate seeing people fight. And yet, I am drawn to watching UFC once in a while. I am drawn to watching boxing. I don't like dead people. And yet, I gravitate towards calling the mortuary and seeing if they need help in washing a corpse or two. There is something about us that desires witnessing pure aggression and pure evil. It makes no sense, but it lives inside us. And part of it, I think, has to do with the fact as biological animals that if you want to survive, you really have to be mean at times. I mean, you have to be vicious. I don't know if you eat meat or not, but just go home and go to Safeway and buy yourself like a living, quacking chicken. I don't know if Safeway sells those things, but just buy one or two, you know, and put the chicken in the sink and cut off his head or her head and see what happens. And the truth is, you may want to, but you can't bring yourself to do it. There is something about you that refrains from that particular engagement. The other aspect is, I had a student in my class yesterday, my short-term class started. She comes in, She smells bad, and she looks bad, she speaks bad. She looks at me and she says, why do you Middle Easterners come to America and steal our currency? I have no idea what that means. Why do you open up like, I'm not Arab by the way, but we are much better, we're much more advanced than the Arabs. Why do you guys open liquor stores and addict people to alcohol and drugs? You know, I usually enjoy students, no matter how crude they may be. But maybe I'm just at a stage where there are just some things I can no longer tolerate. I mean, if you're 18, 19, 20, and you can't really be respectful physically, emotionally, verbally, to someone who's like 34 years older than you, there is really some serious components missing inside you. And I can't help you. I don't even want to help you. The fact is, I don't really want to be around you, so I just dropped it. So she's going to categorize me as evil, as I categorize her as someone who's just no benefit to the class, you know, or to me, or to herself, really, for the most part. I think if you want to survive in life, there are moments where you have to be extremely vicious and mean and aggressive. I mean, you and I have jobs, you and I deal with people, and there are instances where you encounter that there are certain people you just don't like. And there are, in fact, certain people that you pray for their deaths. Seriously, I mean, some politicians maybe. And so I think it's just part of who and what we are. Again, I don't really know exactly what you mean by evil. You know, I'm just thinking as someone who transgresses in a way that's very intense and very mean-spirited. You know, where you're able to kind of define them and look upon them as someone who has evil inside them. If you were to look at, say, the Gospel of Mark, for example, you have the story where some kid walks in and he has Satan inside him. And that's when Jesus, you know, performs exorcism and Satan leaves him. Point that there are people out there, supposedly, maybe just a mythical story, that they have the power to drive out evil, you know, and bring in spirits that are much more healthy for the human spirit. I don't know. I think you should pick and choose to whom you want to be evil. Be very selective. It saves you time and energy and sanity. You know, going back to your question on Monday or what Tuesday about forgiveness, I think one of the most difficult things about forgiveness is you get to a place where you have to forgive yourself for not wanting to forgive and not desiring to forgive. Coming to realize that this other person does not desire forgiveness. And there is this old school philosophy inside you that says, no, you're better than that. Forgive them. And the truth is no. And you have to kind of just bypass that particular aspect of you. It's okay to be mean. You have the right reasons for it. If someone has been there but has really never been there for you, you know, and you've been feeling betrayed and abandoned most of your life, there is no reason to feel guilty for not being around them, taking care of them. Just walk away. You know, go regain your sanity and health. And when you have enough richness about you, if you still want to go back and help them, help them. One of the most important things is you have to understand when it's time to get rid of yourself as a sacrificial lamb. There are certain things you don't need to sacrifice anymore. It means like some people, they just don't need to read the Bible anymore. It's like they have taken a bite of that apple, whatever it may be. They have nuggets of wisdom inside them. They have the canon or the measurements where they can decide what right and wrong are. They just live their life the best they possibly can without resorting to God and the Bible and the rest of it.